Welcome to the Daily Ascent. I'm Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed, a bite-sized, on-the-ground spiritual note that can shift your thinking and your outlook on life to make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. So today I want to talk about capability, the lived kind of capability, the kind that only reveals itself when you're scared or uncomfortable and you're doing something you really, 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 really wish someone else would do for you. And this matters because so many of us quietly decide what we're not good at, and then we build our lives around that assumption. So, as I shared with you a few podcasts ago, my working relationship with my admin ended way earlier than I had expected. And it wasn't dramatic, it was just real. And suddenly I was back in a position of holding every single job in my company, holding mostly everything myself while finishing a program that means the world to me. And part of the work that my admin did was making worksheets, like real worksheets for this beautiful program that I love so much, structured, clear, thoughtful, beautiful. And they were all built in an application called Canva. Now, I want to be really honest here. I have a really hard time with all that graphic stuff. It's not my forte at all. I got a lot of strengths. Canva ain't one of them. It's really, really hard for me. And again, like not in a cute way, not in a like once I clicked around, I figured it out kind of way. It scrambles my brain and it makes me feel slow and I don't think visually the way that Canva wants you to think. And so the like two or three times I've opened it, I feel behind before I even start. And so the moment I realized that I was going to have to make these worksheets by myself, I literally got panicked. Like, not just stressed, I got panicked because I don't know, it's just like I didn't think I could do it. And my mind and my nervous system went immediately to avoidance, right? And I was like, I'm just going to hire someone to do it. Or maybe I just like won't do the worksheets and I'll give them later. Or maybe I'll just make them crappy. I was just trying to think of anything that wasn't, putting myself up to the task of learning how to use Canva. And you know what's so funny about when the nervous system kicks in that avoidant way? Never did it occur to me to say, I can do this, right? And soon after I was in my avoidance, something else came online. The voice of my mother. The voice of my mother. My mother raised me on a lot of really, really good concepts, but one of her concepts was, Molly, dumber people than you have figured this out. My mom used to say that to me endlessly when I thought I couldn't do something. And so my mom just like entered the chat while I was sitting staring at Canva. Maybe it's not the most comforting thing, but it's very clarifying. And honestly, it's taking me a long, long way in my life. So I'm pretty grateful for it. And so I just sat there and I stared at the Canva screen. And, I had a very specific and familiar feeling of wanting to just escape my own life. Isn't it so funny what these little moments can bring up for us? But I took a breath and I decided I was going to stay with this discomfort instead of running from it. And friends, these 6 worksheets took me hours, hours, and they were brutal. That first hour was brutal. I was confused. I made things upside down. I couldn't get them in the box. They looked terrible. I got frustrated. I had to take a bunch of mental health walks, but I kept coming back. I kept coming back. And very, very slowly, not magically, just slowly, something shifted. And let me tell you, I'm not good at Canva. I wasn't suddenly good at it, but I wasn't collapsing anymore. And when I sent those worksheets to my group members, I was the proudest peacock on the face of the planet. I felt a kind of pride that had nothing to do with being a designer. It was honestly the pride of not fragilizing myself, of not assuming that I needed rescuing, of finding out in real time that I could tolerate the learning curve. And so today's Pocket Sage comes from a daily reader called Keep It Simple. And it says, we often underestimate ourselves. We forget that growth requires effort, patience, and trust. When we stop comparing ourselves to others and simply keep showing up, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. One more time for those of you in the back row. We often underestimate ourselves. We forget that growth requires effort, patience, and trust. When we stop comparing ourselves to others and simply keep showing up, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. And you know what I really love about this reading? It is so unglamorous, right? There's no promise of it being easy. There's just a reminder that capability is revealed through showing up, not before. So the word of the day is capability. Capability isn't about confidence. It's about staying. It's about staying the course. It's about not deciding too quickly that something is beyond you. It's about giving yourself the chance to be surprised at how amazing you are. It's about giving yourself a chance to be surprised at what you can actually handle. There is a very real cost to deciding too early that we can't do something, a very, very real cost. That decision doesn't just protect us from discomfort, it limits our lives. It may seem really little, like Canva, but those little things can really add up and take a real hit to your self-esteem and your self-worth. And I see this all the time in my work, especially with people who struggle around food, self-trust, following through, keeping their word to themselves. We end up assuming that we are fragile when there is actually strength waiting to be tested. We confuse fear with incapacity. And so what changed for me wasn't Canva, it was my relationship to myself. I too struggled with weight and addictions and not keeping my word to myself and not being able to follow through. And so every single time I do it, it's like an extra win, right? Because I learn that I can be disoriented and frustrated and imperfect without falling apart, and that I don't need to outsource every hard thing. And that capability often shows up after I commit. It never shows up before I commit, promise you that. And when we stop fragilizing ourselves, we don't become invincible, but we sure become sturdier. And that changes everything. So, our question of the day: where in your life might you be deciding you can't without ever letting yourself find out? And that's all I have for today, my beloved ascenders. I'm going to stay the course with you, and we're going to stretch, and we're going to let ourselves find out what we can actually do. How does that sound for today? We're going to rise together, and I'll see you next time.